Didn't you report the abuse when it was happening? Survivors get this question a lot when they start to tell their story, and I'd love to answer a few of those questions with some information from my own story. I experienced sexual abuse from the age of about 12 or 13 on to about 16 or 17, and I never told anyone about it while it was happening. So I want to talk about some of the reasons that I had for not doing that. The first and biggest reason is that the person who was abusing me was someone who I cared about and someone that my family trusted. It was not a family member, but it was someone who was treated as a family member. And I was very concerned that this person would be thrown out of the house, would be punished, would get in trouble for the abuse. Second reason is because of my siblings. My siblings also loved the person who was abusing me, cared about this person, respected this person, looked up to this person. And I knew that if I reported the abuse this person was doing, that it would be a great source of grief and pain to my brothers and my sister. And I know that sounds unreasonable given what I was suffering, but that's not unusual for survivors to be thinking of everyone except themselves. And some of this the abuser caters to, and the abuser encourages them to think of everyone except themselves. The third reason is that I did not have any safe way to do that. There were a lot of extenuating circumstances, and even though as a teen, I probably wasn't consciously aware of all the ways that reporting the sexual abuse would impact my life and the life of my family, I think at a deep instinctive level, I recognized that there was no way I could do that and still be safe. My parents were on the mission field, and they were responsible for taking care of a ministry there. And so if I reported the abuse, it was going to impact the ministry, it was going to impact my parents' ministry, which was also their employment. So it wasn't a simple thing to go report it. Fourth reason I did not report the abuse as it was happening to me. My abuser said he was sorry and seemed remorseful, and being ignorant of how abusive situations work and how abusers are, I believed him. I took him at face value, and I really truly believed that he couldn't help himself and that he really was sorry for what he was doing. As an adult now, I look back and recognize that's ridiculous. There's an 8-year difference between us. He was an adult, 20 plus. I was a teen of 12 or 13. Not a good excuse. However, as a teen, I did not know better. Another reason I did not report the sexual abuse that was happening to me while it was happening was because I blamed myself for bringing it on myself. As a young teen, I had just started to develop physically into a young woman, and I thought that somehow, either the way I dressed, the way I acted, somehow it was my fault that this older man was paying attention to me in that way and was taking advantage of me in that way, and I blamed myself for that. I blamed myself for the fact that my body responded, that I didn't kick and scream and fight him off. And now, as an adult looking back and understanding trauma and how it works in the brain, I recognize that that was because I froze. My brain went into a freeze response to protect myself. But I didn't know all of that then, and so I blamed myself for a lot of years. Another reason I did not report the abuse as it was happening, related to some of the other reasons, is that I wasn't sure I would be believed, and if I was believed, I wasn't sure I would be protected, and I wasn't certain that I would not be blamed for what had happened, because in my brain, I hadn't kicked, screamed, fought him off, and I didn't do that because I cared about him and I was so confused by what was happening. But now as an adult looking back, I also recognize that that was a natural adrenaline response. You know, we're familiar with the fight or flight, but we don't always remember that there's another response, which is to freeze or fold, where your brain goes into shutdown mode. And now as an adult, I'm aware of that, and I realize that's what was happening. But I didn't report what was going on because I did not have assurance that I would not be blamed by the adults in my life. I had already experienced being blamed by the adults around me for things that were innocent in my mind, but because they looked sexualized to someone looking at me from the outside, I was in trouble for them. Example of that, in the culture I was living in the Caribbean, the area that I was in, a guy and a girl didn't walk on the same side of the road in the same direction together like that unless they were sleeping together. If you walked down the road with somebody as a companion, just as a walking companion, you were suspected to be sleeping together. I did not know this. I was a young teen, 11, 12, 13. Didn't grow up in this culture before that. We moved there when I was 10. So I did not know this. However, I got in trouble for it because that was how it would be viewed. And I was told never to do that again. So I had already experienced several situations like this where something I did could be misinterpreted by someone outside, and I was blamed for it, even though I wasn't doing anything that I knew was inappropriate. So that was another reason I didn't report it.